Um, I've had it in several places in my front yard. It does tend to reseed itself, and I've dug them up and moved them around, but I really like the white flowers in the springtime. It's really easy to grow shrub. It can get up to,
Now you can come.
I think it's gotten up to 4 or 5 feet tall and maybe 3 feet across.
Is it fragrant, Janet?
It is not fragrant. Just has these pretty white flowers this time of year. It doesn't need a lot of water. It survives in my yard on about once a week watering. Possibly could live on less than that. It's deciduous.
Is it native?
It is not. I'm not positive where it's from, but it's not native. But it tolerates clay soil, tolerates pretty much neglect other than occasional watering, and very satisfactory in the spring. And then I love babianas. They are a really carefree bulb, I found. You put them in the ground and forget about them and they take care of themselves, which is kind of what I like in bulbs. And this one's called Viosa, which has a nice red flower. They are South African bulbs, they're not native. But they come up with the winter rains, they do their thing in bloom, and then they die back in the summertime. So they're well suited to our summer dry California climate. And that's what I have. Going to turn it over now to Judy. If Judy's ready.
Yeah. So this is Chasmanthe floribunda, and it's the variety Kittii, which is yellow flowers. I have also the orange flowered one, but again, this is, I love South African plants. You might have gotten a hint about that, but it was named or discovered in the 1920s. It was growing on a property of the Duckett family in South Africa, and they've created wildflower preserves, and they operate spring wildflower shows in the town of Darling, where this was discovered. There's some disagreement if it's different enough from the orange red variety to be worthy of cultivar status, but for right now it's called a variety. It's a perennial bulb, grows in the winter with rain, and I cut it down to 3 or 5 inches when it starts to go yellow, and then it just sits there all summer. It does need a sunny, dry spot, and I don't find it quite as weedy as the orange red variety, but it does come true from seed. Okay.
One.
Next one. I think this will be the last of the Lacanias if you guys are getting tired of Lacanias. This is Lacania pallida. I got it as Lacania pustulata, but as there's, I guess you could call them the clumpers, are wanting to put it, subsume it into Lacania pallida. It is from the southwest Cape of South Africa, and it grows in large colonies in very heavy soil. I started these from seed that I got when I was in South Africa, and I think every seed must have come up because I have a lot of them. So they're 7 to 14 inches tall with kind of narrow bell-shaped flowers that come in cream, kind of a bluish or pink. And the leaves are smooth, but if you can take a look here, the leaves may or may not be heavily pustulated, which means has those blistery looking things on them. Again, it's a perennial bulb, deciduous, grows in winter rain, and usually blooms between February and April. It naturalizes very well. Okay.
Beautiful. That's summer dry, isn't it?
Yes, very.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out hiking at Edgewood, and there were a couple of rarities that were out in bloom. So I thought since we were going to be on Zoom, I could share them. This is called Fritillaria liliacea, and the common name is the fragrant fritillary. It's a native California bulb, and it grows very well in the serpentine grasslands. Only needs the winter rain and blooms February to April. It's full sun, frost tolerant. It's rare and endangered. People have said that there's no noticeable fragrant, which contradicts its common name of fragrant fritillary. And if you go hiking, like I said, these plants are over at Edgewood Park and Preserve. And for some reason, they must know that people like them. They always grow at least 6 feet from the closest path, and you can't go off the path to see them. So you're usually looking through binoculars or just, really trying to get a close-up picture of them. But it is rare and endangered. Next. This is my favorite plant at Edgewood. This is called Mimulus douglasii, or purple mouse ears. And you can see from that further picture, they are hard to see actually. Whenever I go to look, I have to stand in one place for at least 2 or 3 minutes, and then all of a sudden they all show up, but they're there, but you just don't see them. That's a nice picture of a fully open one on the right. And you can see, I was hiking with someone last year, and there was one close enough, he could put a penny in the dirt next to it. So you can see how tiny it is. It is an annual, it's winter growing in well-drained serpentine soils, blooms February through April, and only receives winter rain. These flowers only bloom for 1 or 2 days, and if it's stressed and there's no rain, the flower closes up and it self-pollinates, which is kind of interesting. I've only ever seen this plant at Edgewood, and I know that Tilden Park in Berkeley has a cultivated raised like 4-foot by 6-foot bed that's totally covered with this, but I have never seen it grown out of the ground other than there.
I've seen it a couple of years ago. I went to Table Mountain, which is north of
Fresno.
or north of Oroville.
Oh, that Pebble Mountain.
And there were some large patches of it actually.
Ooh.
On Table Mountain.
Pretty exciting, wasn't it, to see them?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Moving on to Nancy.
Okay, so since these are blooming right now, I took some pictures. I finally put some of my flowering quince in the ground. Canomeles speciosa is one of the types of flowering quince that's around a lot. The other is Canomeles cross superba, which is a cross between speciosa and japonica. According to Dr. Durr, it's hard to tell them apart. The one on the left is a beautiful double orange. If anybody knows what it is for sure, I'd love to know a name on that one. I'm having trouble researching plants that have been around for 20, 30 years, because when I look up the different flowering quince, all I can find are the new patented cultivars. So I'm pretty sure it doesn't look like the one that's currently named as Double Take Orange. The white one is, I took cuttings from Barbara Worrell's garden many years ago. Actually, she brought the cuttings to me at the meeting. And she got that one, she believed, from W.B. Clark Nursery, or it came originally from there. And she thought it might be one called Candide. And when I try looking that up, I can't find anything on it at all. But it's really pretty. Next two. The Toyo Nishiki is a favorite of people who do bonsai. What's interesting about that one is that it will have pink flowers, white flowers, and variegated pink and white flowers all on the same plant. And there's a lot of theories about how to take cuttings of that and get that same mix of all 3 types of blossoms. Some people say you have to have either the white or the pink one at the very tip of the branch. Some people say, well, no, it's when the plant matures. After it's gotten age to it, then you'll have all 3 forms. No one's been able to tell me for sure in a way that I really believe that they know what they're talking about. The one on the right is a super dark red. And what's interesting about it is the leaves are also a very dark green, a little more foresty green than a bright green, and that's throughout the summer. And that's another very old one that I'd love to get a name for.
They're gorgeous. I've always loved that plant. So
I
nice this time of year.
Yeah, Dr. Durr doesn't think that they should be planted as much as they are because it's a one season plant, but oh, what the heck.
Yeah.
And the birds like the flowers too.
I used to have, I think it was Toyo Nishiki in my front yard, but it succumbed to oak root fungus many years ago when I was having trouble with that.
Oh, shoot. Well, I have some plants if you decide you're going to try again. On the left is my daffodil bed. It's one of my successes in my landscaping. The gophers don't eat them. And as long as I can beat down the weeds before the daffodils start coming up, I get a really spectacular show of them. These ones that are in the foreground, the white and yellow, seems to be the most vigorous of all the different ones that I have in there. I don't know the names of all the different ones. You can see in the very middle of the picture, there's like a small round bush. That's a dwarf form. And those are the flowers that I'm holding in the right picture. And this year, for the first time, most of the flowers are singles on a stalk. But I noticed that there was one that split into 3. So I don't know if that's considered triploid or not.
Tell me
but
something. Can you see my arrow on the picture?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Is that the plant you were talking about?
yes, that's the one.
Okay. Sorry. That one. right there.
The other fun thing with the daffodils is just outside the fence is where I have a row of my dad's rosemary, the Mozart variety, and that blue purple color with the variety of different daffodils. It's a great color combination.
It would be.
Okay. And this is my edible page. The Australian finger lime, that's a very close up. That whole thing is about, maybe 1.25 inches long. And I had not noticed that my plant had fruited. And then I noticed that the fruit was sitting on the ground. So I picked it up and split it open. And I've never had any of the little capsules, juice capsules inside go quite such a gorgeous rosy color.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I've never seen, I've seen finger limes and I've never seen one that ripe, I guess.
I don't know if maybe it was a little bit of aging. I don't know. I just thought it was so cool. So had to take a picture of it.
That is very unusual.
Yeah.
Did it taste sweeter at that stage? Did you try it?
No, it tasted just as nice and tangy. It really didn't taste sweeter, but I love the taste of them. I like the little tangy bursts when you pop the seed capsules or juice capsules. The other is out of my vegetable garden. The plants looked beautiful and I didn't look at them for about 2 days. And in that time, the sparrows came in and skeletonized the leaves. And I thought it was just hilarious that they did such a quick job on them. It's the Romanesco broccoli. I should have taken a picture of the fruit as well. It's a solid head like cauliflower, but it's not cauliflower. It's not broccoli. It's not a cross between them. But each of the florets is a kind of a twist, and the whole head is a lime green color. And it's got a nuttier taste. I really love the way it tastes. But I thought I'd share that I was feeding the birds.
Really, it's a nice picture in any case. I like the scalloping on the leaf.
Right.
Nice job.
Oh, that's right. This is an oxalis that used to be in my dad's greenhouse. He never bothered putting a label on it. It's obviously woody. You can see the stem on it, and that gradually gets longer. It's, if I remember correctly, it's evergreen. And I have no clue what the species is on that one. So if anybody knows what that is, I'd love to know. So several mysteries today.
Yes, so
That one invasive, Nancy?
It has not ever seeded. And I haven't put it in the ground. It's, Dad always kept it under the bench in the greenhouse. And so it's under the bench in my greenhouse. So it just kind of sits there.
it just got moved to a new home.
It did.
Similar surroundings.
Yeah, right. Oh, and there's one other thing I wanted to say to everybody. If you're a longtime friend of Betsy Klepsch and can't get up to visit her, one of her neighbors visits her every single Wednesday in the late afternoon. And you could get in touch with me and I can put you in touch with Betsy's neighbor. She will set up a FaceTime or a Zoom call so you and Betsy can visit. And she did that for me last week on Wednesday. And it was just so much fun to see Betsy, because it's a little bit tough to get up there to visit her. And I don't have both shots yet, so I don't want to take anything up. But anybody who wants to visit Betsy, get in touch with me. Visit Betsy virtually, I should say. And I'll put you in touch with her neighbor, Kathy.
And they can get in touch with you through your nursery email, right?
Yeah, it's carmensnursery@gmail.com.
So anybody have any questions, any other comments for our plant people? Otherwise, we will move on to introducing our speakers tonight. So,
I have a question.
Yes, Ernie.
How do you send pictures to share each meeting?
You just email them to info@westernhort.org.
Info@.
westernhort.org.
Okay, thank you.
And I will be happy to include them in our slideshow. Thank you. I'm happy to see you back again.
Thanks. I got the book.
Good. Glad to hear it. So our speakers tonight are Sue Milliken and Kelly Dodson. They are from the Far Reaches Botanical Conservancy, and they'll be telling us about some of their travels to acquire and conserve horticulturally and botanically important plants from southern China, Vietnam, and Argentina. I'd like to welcome Sue and Kelly.
Oh, thank you
Oh,
very
thank
much.
you.
Take it away.
All right, we will do that. I will share screen while Kelly babbles on.
Well, we're really pleased to be invited to talk to you folks tonight. We've wanted to get down for some years to do that, but it just hasn't worked out. So it's really quite a positive thing of this whole pandemic episode to
Whoops.
be able to do all this remotely, and it's really been a lot of fun. Yes, and as mentioned, Sue and I are both founding directors of the Far Reaches Botanical Conservancy, and this was kind of an offshoot of our rare plant nursery, Far Reaches Farm, over the years. And as the nursery, we've both been terribly obsessed with collecting and acquiring.
Okay, let me get that. There we go.
Rare and uncommon plants. And a lot of these are extremely, as we've seen in our collecting and botanizing in Asia in particularly, but everywhere in the world, habitat is severely impacted by human interaction, and you're just seeing so many plants being lost. And our drive and goal is to save as many of them as we can by acquiring them, propagating them, and then distributing them to botanic gardens, public gardens, botanists, and really keen gardeners. So that's the goal.
So I'm assuming everyone can see this first screen, okay?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
All
perfect.
right.
So yeah, if you want to, feel free to check out our websites at Far Reaches Botanical Conservancy, and we do have an email list you can sign up for to keep track of our goings on. But it was really great to be invited to speak because you wanted things that really don't like frost, and that's not something that that's not a big focus, but we have a surprising number of plants that we simply cannot grow outside in the garden here. And so and most people, across the country don't have your wonderful climate, and we kind of hate you for it, except when our Echinopsis, our blue poppies are blooming, and then we feel pretty darn good about where we're at. But so it's just great to be able to show some of these more tender species to you. So we'll get on it here.
Yes, indeed.
Let's see. So this is our shade garden. We've had the property since 2000. Sue and I met on a seed collecting expedition in 1997 in China, and it's just continued since then. But we're both shade gardeners at heart. And so we bought a piece of ground in Port Townsend up on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington that didn't have a single tree on it. Well, it had one tree, but we cut that one down. But anyway, so we had to build this massive lath structure. And so we garden in shade under lath, and it's really great because we don't have, like here we would have big Douglas fir
And cedars.
and
Yeah.
they would be sucking the ground dry in the summer. And we don't have root competition in here. It's really pretty cool.
So we're starting out showing you a photo of one of the tallest perennials we grow, which is actually a Solomon seal.
Yeah,
And it's going right, actually I had to take some of the lath off for both that and the dogwood it's growing up through, but it's going right up through the top there. So this is a Polygonatum vietnamicum. So this is a species from Vietnam with these beautiful red flowers. It looks very different from what you think of as normal Solomon seal.
Yeah, and this was just, this is a really exciting plant for us. And I think, and while we can grow it here, I think you folks would succeed wonderfully with
Yeah,
this.
because it tries to be evergreen here, but then it finally succumbs to our cold weather and just kind of, but I think it would stay evergreen for you folks.
Yeah, and we have no idea, in a more favorable climate, just how tall that would get, I mean, 15 feet, we're pretty happy with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's you guys could set the record. And so Solomon seals, Polygonatum, and they've been just a fascination of ours forever, and we grow a lot of them. One of our taxonomic advisors on our conservancy is Dr. Aaron Floden, who's a botanist at Missouri Botanic Garden, and he is the world expert on Solomon seals. And so we have a lot of cool things from him, and he's just wonderful about identifying ones that we see in Asia. And we always try to collect either seed or samples for him because it's important research-wise. He loves running DNA on these things. So anyway, this is not one of Aaron's collections, but this is Dr. Peter Zale's collection. He's a director at Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania.
And this is from a trip that he made to Myanmar. And this is actually a new species. Aaron hasn't figured out what this is yet. And it's another evergreen one, which is quite attractive.
And so we're going to actually, Peter sent us seeds of his when he collected this, which is good because it wasn't happy in Pennsylvania, and he lost his plants. So we have the plants. We have maybe a dozen of them. And so we're going to be able to send 3 plants to Aaron, and he can do some comparative DNA work on it and put a name to it. So that'll be awesome, awfully cool. And that's
That's
really
kind of what we try to do with the Conservancy.
And I'm sure you've heard that old maxim, the best way to save a plant is to give it away. So, and that's very true in this case.
For sure. And another closely related one, Ludio verrucosum. This is a collection that Aaron made. And it is also another evergreen one.
And this is one that's really recently named. I think Aaron described this and named it in 2017. So it's super rare and it's very new. And it's kind of great, you know, when this mouthful of a species name on a plant actually makes sense. So luteo is yellow, yellowish. Varicosum, varicose means a warty raised protuberance. And so these yellowish flowers are covered in these
Yeah, they're just kind of warty.
on these little warty elevations. So it's yeah, that's great. And the
And
fruit.
Fruit is quite lovely. It's in fruit right now. It's hanging onto its fruit. So it gives a lot of seasons of interest, really.
And while we suspect these two plants won't be hardy here, we could be surprised because we have an evergreen polygonatum from northern Vietnam that's an epiphyte, grows in the trees.
And that's
No
been
way,
perfectly hardy for
no
us.
way that should be hardy, but it's been down to 10 degrees on numerous occasions in the winter and
Yeah,
doesn't
we
even
get cold
blink.
up here.
Yeah. We don't get hot though.
No.
This is one of our, this is the first bloom on one of our most recent collections of polygonatum. This is from Southeast Yunnan, right close to Vietnam border. And this is interesting because it's got the flowers, these urn-shaped flowers of Polygonatum urceolatum, but it's got leaves more like Polygonatum mencksensi. And so this is kind of like an intermediate between the, you know, kind of the Western
Who knows? Maybe it's a new
mencksensi and
species.
the, yeah, Eastern urceolatum. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. So that's going to be interesting for Aaron to play with.
And a related genus, this is a really cute little plant. This is Disperopsis. So the Disperopsis, there's a number in this of species in this genus, and they're evergreen, all of them. This is the smallest of all of them. This is one that we saw the last time we were in China. Just this tiny little ground cover.
Yeah, it was really a treat to see it. And of course, we sent Aaron pictures and the best he could come up with. He says it's just kind of a very poorly understood bit of confusion in this area of China on the Disperopsis species. And there's a small one that is known from herbarium specimens that could be this one, Yui. Or he said it could also be Jinfu chinensis, but Jinfu chinensis is one that we introduced to cultivation from a much earlier collection of ours, and it doesn't quite look the same.
And it's from a long ways off too, so who knows?
But you know, so Solomon seals have all their flowers kind of in the leaf axils, boop, 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 underneath, but they never have them, or rarely have them terminally. So this is an allied genus that's different than Polygonatum. Heteropolygonatum always has flowers on the terminal. And they're evergreen. They're generally all.
Somebody muted Kelly.
Got it. I think we're okay now.
Oh boy, that was a relief for you guys.
Yeah, you're putting them to sleep already, Kelly.
Anyway, a really epiphytic genus. They're all Asian, Vietnam, Myanmar, China primarily. And there's like only 15 species in this. And so this is one, another recent one that Aaron named, Heteropolygonatum marmoratum, and kindly shared with us. So super rare plant.
This is one of my personal favorites. It's just this gorgeous purple leaves. Just a little guy.
Well, actually, our favorite is this one. This is a little one that we found growing on this tree in Vietnam.
And it's really interesting that so many of these plants grow on tree trunks. I mean, they're epiphytic. So you can see that there's this little Heteropolygonatum growing here, but there's all kinds of other things in here. There's lots of orchids. There tends to be lots of ferns that grow on these, and lichens and mosses. And it's just really interesting.
But farther down on this little ridge, we found a larger plant growing actually on the ground. Could well have fallen off, but it's just like growing in a tree in this little rock, humus laden pocket. And so anyway, fortunately it did have seed there. So we were able to get that, and we were able to flower it at the nursery a while back. But when it was just a tiny little little seedling, really. Aaron visited and he took
Just a little
a
notch out of the leaf.
centimeter or
Yeah.
so piece of leaf.
Yeah, and
And
he took it back to Missouri and ran DNA on it, and it's turned out that it's actually a new species, which is really exciting in our world.
yeah, that kind of makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so as soon as it bloomed, he said, "Oh, you've got to cut a stem and press it." It's like, but, but so we
But then
did.
we won't have seed.
Yeah, I
But we
know.
did it anyway.
Yeah, so that's our best flowering stem that we cut and pressed for him and sent to him. And then we had another stem that did have fruit, and he says it would be great to have good measurements and of such of the fruit and seed. So fortunately, this fruiting coincided with the arrival at our conservancy of our new dissecting microscope. So these are the first photos that are
Yeah, because a lot of these plants just cannot be ID'd by the naked eye. They really need a microscope to really get the detail. So
Aaron was extremely excited to see that we had caught a remnant piece of the spathulate stipule. And I know you
Okay.
are as excited as we are by
Yeah.
that, but that's diagnostic, so that's cool.
We had to look that one up. But
And
there's
here's
the actual seeds.
yeah, these are the washed clean seeds from inside that fruit. And if you look really closely, you can kind of see they're dimpled. And so that's an awesome thing.
That's a diagnostic. Yep. And so we're continuing on the Vietnam trip here, just climbing up to this knoll that we call Rocky Knoll.
And this is our friend Tom Hudson from Cornwall that we travel with. We travel with generally we'll travel with Tom and Steve Hoopman from the Rhododendron Species Botanic Garden. They're both incredible plantsmen and great friends.
We generally try to work our way up to the top of a ridge, partly because it's higher elevation, and so the plants tend to be hardier.
And this is just a nondescript little ridge, 300, maybe a football field or 500 feet long. All the big trees have been cut off for timber, and now they're cutting the larger shrubs for firewood.
Yeah, it was actually disturbing. The whole time we were up on this ridge top, we could just hear the sound of chainsaws off in the distance.
But there are several conifer species there, several rhododendron species. It was just an incredible place. And Steve is one of the world experts on Ericaceae, that's heather family, rhododendrons, madrones, manzanitas. And he is just transfixed by this little guy growing in the rocks. And it's either a vaccinium or an agapetes. And agapetes are basically vaccidiums or blueberries, which are generally epiphytic. So who knew? But these red bracts here were just surrounding this bright red seed, this fruit. So it was just such a gorgeous thing. And we were able to get seed. So
yeah, and then we actually managed to flower it last year, which is really exciting. So this is flowering in the nursery, and it just has wonderful little flowers that made us realize that it was definitely an agapetes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And love that plant.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of illustrate a more, familiar agapetes, this is Agapetes hassiana red elf. And all the plants we're looking at are rare enough to be considered to be part of our Far Reaches Botanical Conservancy plant collection. And our goal is to keep at least a minimum of 3 different clones of each plant that are just kind of a genetic repository here at the nursery, at a backup, and we can propagate from those and share that genetic material around. But this is in cultivation and it's available. But
yeah,
here's
agapetes do have these big fruit like a blueberry, but and they're actually sweet. They're tasty, as is evidenced by that bumblebee there that is, I think, just
he's
slurping it up.
Yeah, got an arm lock around that. And while they're they are sweet, but they're a little insipid, I think.
Yeah,
kind of
they're not as good
soft
as blueberries.
and
Yeah.
they don't have the texture, but really cool
But
plants.
the flowers are just loved by hummingbirds too, which is great.
And this is a new species of agapetes that Steve collected, and in the kind of the Sino-Himalayan far eastern part, and just a good example of so in blueberries, they're shorter flowers and they're more urn-shaped. They're rounder. Agapetes are longer, and agapetes have these kind of uniquely ribbed flowers. And I always love on the bigger flowered ones, they have these nice chevrons, which are just so, I don't know, they're like checked glass beads or something, they're cool.
And moving on to another oddball plant.
Yeah, so this is an aroid, and aroids are members of like the skunk cabbage family, Jack in the pulpit, philodendrons, for those of you lucky enough to be able to grow those outside. But this is one from another Vietnam collection. This is from the one of Aaron Floden's collections in Vietnam, Ramusadia hookeriana. And it's kind of, I don't know how, it's fairly unique in its one of its means of propagation.
Yeah, so the first time we saw this, we thought, well, that's a strange looking flower. That doesn't look like an aroid flower at all. What is going on here?
And it turns out that it's not, because it does have a typical kind of aroid flower, yellow with a spade, you know, a little finger like spadix in the spathe. But it flowers very rarely in the wild. It doesn't do that very often, yet it's extremely widespread across Asia.
Yeah, so it's how is that happening?
And so these are little bulbils that come off this stolon, that little runner that comes out of the plant. And these have these little hooked appendages, and they get caught up in animal fur and can be transported hundreds of yards away. And this process is called zoochory or zoochory. And it just means seed dispersal by animals. So it's a pretty cool adaptation.
Plants are crazy.
Yeah.
And we are going on to more aroids. This is an Erycema species that is blooming from seed that we got in China. And it's actually showing some nice variegation on the leaf, which is kind of nice.
And this is one of Peter Zale's from Longwood collections on that trip he did to Myanmar, where he found the new pliginatum. This is Erycema longipetiolulatum, and so this is the first time it's going to flower, and we're looking at this little flower bud emerging here, and we're going,
no, it's not going to be one of the showy ones.
gosh, but you know, it's going to be good. It has to be good. It's from Peter.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, he's a botanist, and and it just has to be interesting.
Yeah.
And so it's cute, you know, it's not going to stop a tour bus, but we're really thrilled to have it. But it's going to be so happy down in your area. We can't grow it here. It tends to be winter growing a bit. But it got its name from this sort of long sort of petiole on the central leaflet. So that's how it got its species name.
And just kind of continuing on the theme of the winter growing or the fall growing Erycemas, this is Thunbergii subspecies autumnale, so it's fall blooming. This is from Taiwan, and it's just a real, now talk about a showy flower. That's a handsome thing.
Yeah, it's just full of promise here when it's just in bud, and you can see these long, erect sort of whiptail appendages coming out of the flower. But that's just perfect. That is just perfect. So elegant.
So far, it has not set any seed, unfortunately.
So it's not quite perfect.
No.
It's disturbingly imperfect. One of our Conservancy members managed to get this fairly rare Erycema. Got 3 seeds of it, and just kind of panicked at planting them herself. So she brought them over to us and said, "Would you do this?" And so we did, and this is the first bloom on this Indian species.
Yeah, it's an odd little thing.
Yeah, it's just there's really nothing like it in the genus with that kind of color combination. It's awesome, totally tender.
And another fall bloomer. This one we've seen the last trip we took to China, blooming in the fall with beautiful shiny leaves, and here it is blooming at the nursery. Really kind of a, well, you can see why it's called cobra lily. There it is though in China.
Yeah, and this foliage is late October in Guangxi. Just really, really remarkable leaves, good substance. This kind of cream edge to the leaf,
Yeah,
you know,
that
it's
little drip tip is really cool on the leaf too.
Yeah, the subtle differences, you know, just kind of leave us transfixed.
Well, we tend to be there in the fall and seed collecting time too, and so it's always neat to see something actually blooming.
And you know, this got quite a reptilian sort of feel to it.
For sure.
And so this is one on a mountain right on actually forms part of the Vietnam border in southeast Yunnan, Wutai. And so this was a very difficult ascent. It wasn't, it was I think we probably did about 20 miles and climbed, I don't know, 4,000 to 5,000 feet. It was a
It was a
lot.
very long day.
We were
And
exhausted, honestly.
our guides were hacking their way through the jungle to get us up to the top too. It was the trail had kind of grown in, and I don't think Westerners had been there before, so it was really something. But fortunately, we had these beautiful accommodations when we got up to the top. This is an old cement block bunker that built by the Chinese. It's right on the Chinese-Vietnam border.
I mean, literally, the border runs through the summit of this mountain, and we're at about 10,000 feet here. So
we just thought we'd give you a little taste of some of the things that we do here. So I'm
we're able to
looking
make
in the doorway, going, "Oh my God, really?"
we're able to make these trips thanks to the generosity of our conservancy members and donors, and so we always have to assure them we're not staying at the Ritz or anything. So.
Definitely not.
It was pretty snug in there for 4 people, but we managed, and it all worked out. But we got kind of settled in there, and then our guides and porters started making dinner right up against the wall outside, and went into one of the rooms where the door had been kicked in and was buried in debris, and
That
they
was our dining room table.
dragged that out. So it was pretty good.
Yeah, there's smoky fire under the eaves, smoked out the entire building too, which added to the ambiance.
And so, of course, as dinner finishes up, then that progresses to the inevitable drinking of the kind of the Chinese white lightning. So there's Steve and Tom, and going, all right,
Here we go.
Oh man.
And so now the next day we headed back down. We went up to the top of the mountain, looked around, and saw some really interesting plants, and then headed back down the pathway, another long climb down. And we stopped to see this snake curled up in the bamboo, and went, "Oh my God, look at that." And our main guide was coming up behind us, and he through gestures was, "What are you looking at? What are you looking at?" We pointed, and he went, "Oh," and ran off the pathway. And apparently this is an extremely poisonous viper.
Yeah, this is just a couple feet off the path, about 4 feet up in the air. And
we're just kind of wondering how many of these we walked right by on the way up as they were hacking their way through.
Best not to think about
No,
it.
probably not.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's some of what we encounter on these trips.
And so we'll go through some of the more recent Asian additions to our collection. This is a Lysomachia that flowered for the first time. Sorry, our little dog's up here, and it's being awfully cute right now. This is a Lysomachia species that's evergreen, comes from low elevation, so definitely will not take any frost. And this is the first time it flowered.
Glossy foliage. Yeah, we weren't even sure what it was, that it was a Lysomachia until it bloomed, because the foliage is quite different.
But it's not so bad. And
Yeah.
then they actually open up to a more star shape too. So.
And we've really been getting into begonias, because there's just some beautiful ones, wild begonias in Asia, and this is one of them.
Yeah, begonia versicolor from southeast Yunnan, real low, real flat almost to the ground. But what leaf? And they do vary, and that is in cultivation, but it's really great to be able to have wild documented collections. So it's very helpful in the botanical realm.
And we're not sure what this species is, but it came in a lot of different patterning on its leaves. Really a beautiful thing.
Another one from southeast Yunnan. Yeah, that's super handsome. And just the hairs, just the hairs on the outside of the petals and the stems and the backs of the leaves, I mean, it's so good. And this is one that will grow here outside. This is with mulch. A lot of these rhizomatous and tuberous begonias are hardier than you might expect if given mulch, which in our short winter, short cold period kind of zone means that frost never penetrates, down anywhere near the plant. But this is Begonia hemsleyana, and it's one of those kind of palm-leafed begonias.
And another group that we've kind of fallen off the edge over are the Gesneriids, or the African violet family, and there's just an amazing assortment of them in Asia.
Yeah, and this is an unidentified wild collection. Happy to have anybody put a name on it, that would be so helpful. We haven't had time to sit down and key it out yet, but we've got a piece pressed, and we can do that at our leisure this next winter, maybe. But yeah, it's really
quite
nice.
handsome in flower. And this is just an example of another one that we saw on the last trip we were on, but I have an app on my phone that I use, which is really helpful in recording data. You can set it to either feet or meters, but it just gives you the GPS, and then you can write notes, and it's a great way to kind of take notes through the phone.
Yeah, so we can look back and see, where we got it, elevation, name, when. It's really, really handy. And so this is probably Loxostigma griffithiana, or Griffithii. Yeah, I think Griffithii. But it looks a little bit different. And the Chinese have been naming new species that look similar to this in the same area. So not certain for sure what this one is. Another Asian gesneriid from a wild collection. There's so many and so many new ones. This bears some resemblance to Oreochorus cowbangensis, but not certain. Really beautiful though.
But there's just new species of these being discovered all the time now. It's really quite amazing.
Yeah, and this is one of Steve's collections. This is Glabrella mahiri, and what a lovely thing. We saw this flowering at the very bottom of Jinfo Shan in Chongqing province, and God, it was incredible, really.
And another one that's in this whole family, this is an Aescananthus.
And so common name lipstick vine, and this is one of Steve's collections and first introductions of this species, and it's really distinct with these really thick, they're like Hoya leaves, really.
Thick, leathery, yep.
But the flowers are cool. Really, really kind of fun. And just, and it carries itself with just foliage alone because it's so distinctive. And the seeds are these long bean-like seed pods split open and have just there's like one seed in these long threads, and they just blow all over. And we keep waiting for them to become kind of a weed in the greenhouse, but it hasn't happened yet.
No, we finally got around to planting some of that seed, and now we're getting enough to offer finally.
Remarkable how planting the seed actually translates to plants.
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
a lesson we have to learn over and over. So not everything's herbaceous that we get interested in. I mean, this is a really fun Gaultheria salal genus from China. Gets into Vietnam as well.
One of the nice things about this plant is that it flowers and fruits at the same time, and it has beautiful foliage. And yeah, see that nice, beautiful indumentum.
Yeah, Gaultheria longibracteolata.
And fruit is attractive when
really
it ages.
Awesome fruit. And so one of the great things, when it's not raining, is about these plant hunting trips in Asia, particularly in the karst area of China and Vietnam, are the views, and the mountainous areas are just really speak to us. And it was really difficult for us to be looking at really interesting photos of Fritillaria and Mimulus during your plant show and tell today, and hear about hiking out and seeing these growing in the wild. We just wanted to be there so bad.
Well, we're getting out. We get out into our local Olympics quite often, but it's pretty snowed in right now. I think there's 12 feet up at Hurricane Ridge, so it's gonna be a little while before we're hiking.
That's true. And so we're standing on the summit right now of Shentang Shan in the Daoshan range in Guangxi, and looking out at the surrounding mountain ranges, and really fascinating. One of the plants that we were able to collect seed of right on the summit was this shrubby evergreen Stewardia. A lot of the evergreen Stewardias have very small little white flowers. This one looked to be like it could be related to Longipetiolata. It's got this red flange on the leaf stem there, which is attractive in its own right. But these are like 6 to 8 feet tall, but just full of seed capsules. So they bloomed really heavy.
And anybody who knows Stewardia knows that it tends to have white flowers, or it does have white flowers. And so when this one bloomed for the first time,
Yeah, and as an aside, possibly the best collection of Stewardia species in the world is at Quarry Hill Botanic Garden. So
That's
well
true.
worth the visit to see those.
but anyway, here's the flower when it bloomed for the first time, and it's just got this beautiful star-shaped pink center.
Which is, as far as we know, and as far as anybody can tell us, a unique, never been seen before in Stewardias. And so that's, you know,
Yeah.
this could play a pretty important role in hybridizing with hardier species to get some color into typically white flowers. Really great.
Yeah,
Makes us happy.
for sure. And another really cool plant that we saw on that same mountain top, it took us a while to figure out what it was.
Years.
That's right.
Anyway, so this looks like, you know, like a rhododendron, you know, has that same sort of feel, or a dryme's winter eye or something. Just a really bold leaf plant. And we saw this climbing up the mountain, this young plant with these big leaves and great red petioles. Then we get on top of the summit, and there's these 30-foot tall trees that admittedly are kind of taking it with the wind there and exposure, but
And so we're just staring up into this tree, and we see these just huge nut-like fruit right up in here. And we're
Yes.
trying to figure out, how do we get these fruit? They're way too high for us to get to. But fortunately, one of the guys on the trip with us that particular year was a big guy named Keith, who leaned up against the trunk and just started rocking the tree, and
Yeah.
boom, 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 they all fell down.
he did his bear imitation, and it worked pretty great.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get that.
Oh, there's a close up of it.
And so we got a few seed and you know, got them home. They're notoriously poor germinators by what little information we can find on it. And but anyway, this is a seed that germinated. We got one to go, and so that was very exciting.
Took a couple of years.
Yeah,
A
and
lot of patience.
yep, and eventually we got a name on it, and it's Diplopanic stachyanthes. And it turns out that this has been it's a rare tree in Asia. It's kind of a living fossil. There's fossil records known in North America of this tree, but it's kind of a Pleistocene relic in China and Vietnam. And so it's a pretty neat thing, and really, really rare in cultivation. There's a few trees that in the UK, but
Yeah, I think as far as we can tell, we were the only ones in this country to have it.
and by few I mean like you can count them, 4 or 5 that are in the
And it's got
UK.
these big kind of woody, or sort of, I guess woody wouldn't be the word, but
Spongy.
spongy, kind of primitive roots. It obviously needed repotting here.
I know. Here's the pot it came out of, but
Yeah. Oh boy, waited a little long on that.
we
but-
noticed it was actually pushing itself out of the pot. So that's Sue doing a transplant. We're giving it a little bigger pot there, and that's the roots. And those are just big root tips, and they just actually feel spongy. And there's just you can tell by looking at it. Yeah, this is kind of a primitive
Yeah.
plant.
But fortunately, it survived the transplanting and is looking good here.
Yeah, and so this was last spring, and we could see this big bud. It was a
we're
bigger
like, "No,
bud
that
than
can't be a flower bud. There's just
yeah.
no way.
It's too small. It's only 6 feet tall or something. It can't be blooming yet.
But it was.
Yeah,
And so we realized we were the first place in the world in cultivation to bloom this, which is pretty
and
exciting.
you can kind of see the flower spikes, terminal flower spikes on this thing.
Not as showy as we were hoping for.
It's like, well, where are the petals? And it's like, oh yeah, it's
There
really
aren't
primitive.
petals, yeah. But you can
Doesn't-
see it's already trying to make the big nuts.
Yeah,
It's
and there's a little
starting to
close up
swell
of
a
it.
little bit. There we go.
And we were gonna, we got our paintbrushes together, and we were gonna go out there and hand pollinate it. And then we noticed that the hornets
Yeah,
were
they
just
loved
all
it.
over
They
it. And
just
well,
loved
they're
it.
gonna do a better job than we are.
Yeah.
And true enough. And so we were a little disappointed at first. This was the most, we had two seeds on one flower stem, and no more than that, mostly just a single one. And then we realized, well, of course, all the flowers aren't going to get pollinated because how it would just tear it right off the plant. They're
Yeah,
so
we were
heavy.
actually kind of worried that they would tear the branches just in our wind, but
But
we
that's,
managed to get 6. So
yeah,
that's
and so
great.
they're basically just like they're covered in this big leathery green coating like a walnut, and inside's this big woody seed. And that has to decompose to some extent in order to get water down into the embryos of these things and kick them off. But yeah, it's pretty fun.
And so there seems to be different subspecies of these guys. That one was a high alpine one, and this one is down lower in our last trip to Yunnan. And these guys get much bigger than the one we saw initially.
Yeah, and most of the ones that are known are all these lower elevation subtropical plants that can get 70 feet tall. No information at all on that high elevation one we found, which has got to be at the highest point of its range. So we hold out hope that might be hardy in warmer parts
Certainly harder than this one, we
of
think.
the Northwest here. So, but these big ones have are just incredible. I mean, looking up, that's a big tree. So big evergreen, handsome plant with that great foliage.
And then this, and even the shape of the seed is a little bit different from the high elevation
a
one.
little shorter, a little rounder. And so one of the things that we're terribly proud of is being the first ones to introduce a magnolia species to cultivation. This is Magnolia lavelliana, which had never been introduced to cultivation, which is kind of mind-boggling when it's such an important ornamental tree genus like that. But really great. And so we had no idea really what it was until we sent a plant to Dick Figler, who's a North American magnolia expert, and he was able to identify it as Magnolia lavelliana because he's the one that formally described it from dried herbarium specimens. So that was incredible. It just seemed like it all went full circle there.
And we certainly had no expectation that it would be hardy, but it has proved to be quite hardy for us. This is outside and up against our shade garden here, but on the outside of it, and it's been hardy.
Yeah, and one of the first plant that we released of this was just a young plant, and we gave it to Bill McNamara, who was then the director at Quarry Hill Botanic Garden. Brought down a bunch of plants to give him,
and because it had your California heat, he bloomed it the year before we did, and it was quite annoying that he did that.
That was so annoying, but he
and he had multiple flowers, and well, we bloomed it last year.
We had one flower, but we were really proud
nice
of it.
color.
They're fairly small flowers, but really attractive, and after seeing the parent plant in the wild, literally covered in fruiting cones, they bloom a lot.
Yeah.
So that's really
Fragrant?
fun.
Not particularly,
No.
a little bit of fragrance. Yeah, not heavily fragrant.
So another rarity, and this would pair nicely with the Diplopanax as being a relic of the Pleistocene age. This is a little evergreen creeping dogwood related to the more northern, our native Cornus canadensis, Cornus analaschensis, Cornus suecica, all kind of like northern US, Canada, over into Kamchatka area. But this is one that was the lost Cornus of Frank Kingdon Ward. Kingdon Ward was a great plant hunter, English plant hunter in the 20s and 30s. And this is one that he found on a real isolated ridge in northern, at that time, Burma.
Yeah, I mean,
Back in the
thousands of
30s.
miles away from any of the other ones. So just kind of crazy that it was.
And so this was
You got the camera to work.
And so this was one of his great regrets, that he was never able to introduce this plant, because he had small plants established in a little nursery, because he'd stay out kind of in the field in a hill station for like a year, and the Japanese were invading, and so he just had to get on out of there and leave his plants. So that hadn't been seen for 75 years or so, until it was just reintroduced about 2 years ago by an
Right.
English botanist. And we were from that original collection, the following year, we were given a piece to as a safeguard to keep it going. And so here it is blooming at the nursery. Very excited.
Yeah,
And
it is. It's just being described now in Curtis's Botanical Magazine. So it's really cool to have. I'm sure we're the only ones in North America that have it.
yeah,
So
and so new species, Cornus wardiana, obviously
Named
for
after
Frankine and
Kingdom Ward.
Ward, little rooted cuttings.
Yep.
Yay.
yay. It's always good when that happens.
I like to have a backup.
And then the whole Aurelia family, they're just so great for dramatic foliage.
Yeah, and Brassioopsis are, which is an interesting spelling because I forgot the A there. It's S-A-I.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice.
Boy, I proofed that 5 times. Anyway, so Brassioopsis is basically a Schefflera, but with different flower structure and oftentimes has little prickles on it.
Yeah, it's usually pretty spiny.
Yeah, and so this is a cool one. Absolutely frost sensitive. It can't take any cold, really. But what a leaf.
Look at that leaf. That's amazing. And a new leaf coming out is quite dramatic too. And there's the flower.
Yeah, the flowers could be better, but it's going to set a big knot of black fruit. So it's going to be pretty in that respect. However, the one that we got really excited about finally getting is this one. This is seedlings of Brassioopsis botaneri. And how awesome is that? And this has got to be the first introduction to the US again. And there's the foliage on the young plants. And the reason we're excited about it is because of this dang picture that's on the internet of our friend Nick Macer, who has Pan Global plants.
Over in the UK.
In the UK. And this is him in the wild with a leaf of Brassioopsis
pretty
botaneri.
stupendous, really. That's a huge leaf.
God,
so that's going to be excited. We're going to be excited when that one's going to have more hardiness than the other one.
And he just had to be so damn handsome with that English accent too. It's like, that's just, yeah.
And it's actually got showier flowers than most of the other Brassioopsis too. So.
Yeah, that's nice. It's just
really nice.
It's just nice.
And but it's we are loving Scheffleras too, and this is the one that's hardy for us, Schefflera delavea, and this is a nice cut-leafed form of it.
From one you found in year 15 years ago, 20 years, 15 years ago now, but really awesome.
It's going to take over our shade garden here,
and it's just as happy out in full sun, so it does great. So one of the things that one of the plants that we like are some of the southern hemisphere plants. This is Cranodendron hookerianum, or Chilean lantern tree or lantern shrub. These flowers are fantastic. So that's the typical farm in cultivation, the typical species. But in England and Scotland, they have a pink flowered one named Ada Hoffman. And a few years ago, we were in Scotland and we were able to introduce this to the US. And that's
another thing that we try to do through the Conservancy is find plants in places like the UK where there's maybe a national collection or anyway, they're not available in this country and maybe are at risk for being lost to cultivation. So
anyway, we're really pleased to see that this is hardy in our garden.
Yep.
Kind of a nice thing. And so we, and so another plant, another Chilean plant, and this gets to be a pretty good sized tree. This is Cranodendron patagua, and this is a picture taken at the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh. And that's been absolutely perfectly hardy for us. It's frozen solid in a gallon pot at 17 degrees and dropped its leaves, but came back without a blink, in the spring. So
and we're going to just kind of finish the rest of the show with just a little trip down to South America. And we had an opportunity to go to Argentina, a year ago, actually. With our friend Cody Hinchliff invited us to go with him. And one of the plants that we wanted to find was this other Cranodendron that's not known to cultivation.
And this is, and we did indeed find it. And so that was great. And Cody's one of our board members and a PhD in botany. So he's great.
He's really handy to have along in the field.
And
so there it is in fruit.
Really, really, really remarkable to find that. And that's just a happy shot of seedlings.
That's right. But Argentina, it's just a very different landscape, but it has just incredible diversity of just these dry land areas and then cloud forests and everything in between.
And one of the trees that we grow here is a genus called Polylepis, and it's an evergreen plant in the rose family with bark that's as good as like paper bark maple, shaggier and more beautiful than Catalina ironwood. It's a stunning little thing. And this is a grove against this protected sort of wall here of Polylepis australis. And so excited. This is at the very top of our list of plants to find.
Yeah, I think this was the first day we were out in the field and we found it, and it was just really fun to see it.
And this is a botanist that that Cody had made contact with at one of the universities, and who had arranged us to take us around and arrange for our collecting permits and everything. So that was just incredible. And there's just another shot of it. And just growing out of just pure rock cracks. That's where we always found it, growing in association with rocks.
Yes, Kelly is resplendent in front of this big grove of it.
Man, that's a trophy patch there, and it's just this. And so we're up in a really windy, dry, grassy steppe, and there's this little cluster of huge boulders, and it's just enough protection to give the seedlings a chance to grow without wind on them, and enough moisture underneath those massive rocks. But that bark, yeah,
the flowers not so much, but the bark is absolutely extraordinary.
So I think some of the melaleucas get bark like that too, just real thick layers of that insulation, really.
Yeah, we're happy.
Oh man, we're happy.
And so one of the things we were doing on this trip, because of Cody mainly, is doing herbarium samples. So these are the guys doing the Polylepis. There they go.
And so we're doing several sheets of each specimen, so that multiple sheets of the same plant could be deposited with Argentinian herbaria, and at least 2 sets be sent home to the U.S. when they're ready to go. But the one we really wanted to find was Polylepis hieronymi. There's 3 species that grow in Argentina, and this is a very rare one.
Yeah, only found in this one small area.
That's not ever been introduced to cultivation. Don't know if any, but has really seen it too much. But just so great. That's the first plant we saw. So we took some time with it. It was.
It's closely related to another one that we grow here at the nursery. It has the same kind of fuzzy foliage, and it's quite attractive.
Yeah, Polylepis lanata is its closest cousin that we have here.
And we actually saw some begonias, so it's nice to see something recognizable down there.
And so why did we get? I'll just diverge for just a second. So how did we get interested in Polylepis? Was that there was a book called New Trees to Cultivation that John Grimshaw and Ross Payton wrote back in 2008 or something, and they were talking about Polylepis and how effort must be made to introduce more species in like the one, and so. A year later, or 2 years, I guess it was a year later, Ben Cam at Sacred Succulents up in Occidental was selling seed shares to a seed collecting trip to South America.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, maybe he could collect Polylepis for us.
Yeah, so we sent him a bunch of money, and well, I don't know, he probably didn't think it was a bunch, but it felt like it to us. Anyway, we sent him some money and we said, Polylepis, nothing else. And so he managed 3 different collections for us, which was really, really wonderful. And that was the best money we've ever spent. And he's such a good guy, gosh. Anyway, there's the begonia flowers. And had a little bit of correspondence recently with Dick Turner too. And I really appreciate the information he gave us on Polylepis being cultivated in the Bay Area as well as Australia, New Zealand.
Another picture of it.
Yeah, and so here's this just kind of open rocky. It's just exposed rock, just solid rock, and this Polylepis.
It's kind of growing down in the rock crevices, oftentimes, I think, to get away from the cattle, because it is a member of the rose family, and they do seem to eat it.
But yeah, that's great, and that white woolly underleaf is just so handsome.
And that's an ancient one there coming out of that bank.
Yeah, and it's only recorded in botanical literature as being shrubs, but obviously they do become trees given proper conditions and such. So it was just such a magical moment. And on this little we've got a couple more slides, but this is our closing slide of
yeah, it was magical, and it was nice that it was magical because we were only in the field for 3.5 days, and then we had to leave because COVID started hitting Argentina, and that was a year ago.
And
And
so
so we got the last flight out of Argentina. We almost didn't make it home.
we had like a day and a half to try to figure out a way to get back to Cordoba to where the airport was. So that was a 12.5 hour drive, and that was crazy. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But we'll end with a couple of slides, and this is as you drive into our place, this is the first thing you see. This is a couple of California plants, Santa Cruz ironwood and Matilla poppy, and they are just happy as a clam here. And
Well, we're in the rain shadow here, and I think they really like the fact that we are drier.
And
here.
particularly the Lionothamnus is just all the plant people that come here that are local just go, what, you can grow that? So we've been giving rooted plants to UBC, University of British Columbia Botanic Garden, and the Hoyt Arboretum in Portland. So it's just
Yeah, it seems to be a hardier form.
and you guys go, oh, that old thing. Oh, God.
It's a handsome thing.
But anyway, if you get to Port Townsend, this is a shot of our quaint Victorian seaport. And this is how it looks like this every day here. So
yes,
it's
definitely.
wonderful. So thank you very much.
Yes,
We
thank you.
really had a blast. Oops, give that to our IT
Wonderful.
specialist.
Okay, well, thank you. It was a wonderful presentation. We've asked people to type questions into the chat if you have a few minutes to answer a few questions.
Yeah, absolutely, no
sure.
problem.
Okay, I'm looking down here. Oh, first off, somebody asked about that location app that you were using on your phone. If you
Oh,
have the
yeah.
name of the app.
Yeah, that's called Solocator.
Like SO locator.
Yeah,
Great. That looked like it was really handy.
it was really handy. Yeah. I used to carry a little notebook around, and inevitably it would get soggy, or I'd forget my pencil or whatever. So it helped.
Right.
It helped a lot.
What one of the nice things it does is it kind of, it has all these things that are always like optional. If you're in a hurry out in the field, oh, I'm just going to skip this one part. And then you go, God, why didn't I write that in? But
Well,
it's all right there. So it's really good.
Yeah.
And I assume it has a GPS, so it gives you the location.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and field notes or field deck collection data is really, really important when we're doing wild collections, and especially when we're distributing to other botanic gardens, that they all want that data. So we have to do it.
Yeah, I definitely want to keep track of where they come from. Thank you. You had an Aegyptes, the really, I think it was the first one you showed that was a dwarf
Right.
species on that.
No, we don't know what it is. Steve doesn't know, and he knows his Agapetes quite well, but we don't know. It's one from Vietnam, and we were the first ones to bloom it. I don't think Steve's bloomed his yet,
No, but he'll bloom it this year.
but he had no idea what it was. So I don't know if that means it's a new species or just one that we haven't been able to figure out yet.
And I guess I can assume you don't have it in production yet.
No, but
No.
we're getting there. We've taken cuttings, and we're getting there. We just need to do another.
Seems
run
like
of
seems
them.
like a real good size for Carmen Nursery.
Oh,
Oh, did I say that out loud?
Somebody said Hossaniana red elf.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's the second one, and we showed of that. Showed of the Agapetes. That's a really handsome one too.
Yeah, and we know that's grown in the Bay Area for sure, and it's that striping or Golden Gate or so.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the new species, the other new species that Steve had, we just have a few plants of that, and maybe just one actually.
Just the one that we bought from him. But
Yeah. So he's working on it, and the Rhododendron Species Botanic Garden is a great place to check for those too, because they do offer those. Maybe not that one yet, but from time to time.
worth becoming a member just to get
Yeah.
first crack at
Yeah.
at these rarities. So
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. I think the person who asked the question works there. So how do you know how to germinate the seeds that you collected?
Well,
Trial and error?
there is a lot of trial and error. I mean, I kind of go with the school of, well, they're either warm germinators or cold germinators, and anything that has a kind of pulp on it, I need to take that off. And so when we're collecting things like Jack in the Pulpit seeds, Heracema seeds, you got to strip all the pulp off, or the vacciniums. And then I usually just experiment. I mean, I know enough to know what certain types like, And if it's a really fine seed, I'll surface sow it. And a lot of times I'll try it at warm for a month. And then if it doesn't germinate, I'll switch it over to cold. So yeah, it is trial and error. And sometimes I use gymborelic acid too to help.
Yeah, sometimes that's just like a miracle treatment. You know,
Yeah.
you've failed and failed and failed
Yeah.
for years trying to grow this thing and do a gibberellic treatment, and it's like coming up like cress.
But
you
it doesn't
know?
work on everything. And sometimes it's not good. But yeah,
Mostly not so bad.
it's fun to try different
Yeah,
ways.
yeah.
Great, well, thank you. I imagine you get some clues from where the plant is growing, but other than that.
Right.
Yeah, usually, you know, if it's like a really cold area and it's on top of the mountain, you can pretty well guess that it might want a
Needs
cold
a cold
period.
yeah.
But that's not always true either.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it's something that's rare and you don't have much seed and you won't be able to get more seed, then you don't try one treatment on all the seed. You know,
No.
we
It's always good to just try a
split
little
it up
bit.
and try some different
And
things.
also
so.
distribute it around. We make sure that Steve has some, and that other, you know, if somebody we know is particularly good at growing something like a primula, then we'll send them some seed too to try.
It's nice to have a community to work with.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, well, you know, plant people are really the best people, I think, and they're 99.9% just as generous as all get out, and great about sharing. So it's you know, the key thing is to get these rare things established, and it doesn't really, I mean, it doesn't matter really who does it as long as it gets done, you know. So it's diversify and increase your chances of success in having that happen.
A common goal and not too much ego involved helps.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Mine, it's all mine.
So another question, the Brassiopsis trapezoides, do you grow that?
We do. Yeah, we do. And we have the Botany. I mean, it's expensive because it's the first offering in the country, but it's listed in our nursery online catalog at Far Reaches Farm.
Trapezoides.
Oh, Trapezoides, sorry. Trapezoides. No, we don't grow that. That's a cool thing for sure. But no, we don't have that one.
Okay. But thanks for reminding everybody that you do have your nursery website they can check out for a lot of these plants. Somebody asked what plants take you back to your childhood memories.
Oh gosh.
Oh boy.
Well, there's a few. You know, our native columbine is one that always takes me back. It was one of the first wildflowers that I learned, Aquilegia formosa, in our shade garden, and it's totally the wrong place because it gets too much shade and doesn't bloom too well. There's a crinum growing out there that I've had since I was 11. So
Wow.
bought it at a cactus.
He's an old guy.
Bought it. Thanks, honey.
You're welcome.
I'm seasoned. We bought that at a cactus nursery in Oregon, as the Mexican corn lily. So, but it's the oldest plant I have. It's able to go at being a bulb. You know, it's should there be a extended travail in one's life, you know, it just goes dormant, and then when you kind of get your act together again and start watering it, it's happy to respond. So it's been good that way.
So were your parents plant people?
What plant takes you back?
Oh, I don't know, probably hepaticas and trilliums and East Coast woodlanders, which of course we have great trilliums out here on the West Coast too. But
you grew up in the
I
Northeast.
grew up in the Northeast with all the kind of spring woodland plants blooming, which was lovely.
She is so unexcited by the spring flowers underneath the cold coniferous forest here, which doesn't
There aren't any.
So were your parents plant people?
Yours?
My mom definitely always had a perennial and annual garden, and my dad loved his roses. So
yeah, she's in the garden club and
yeah,
all.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's true. And your mom was, and both your parents were into gardening, really.
Well, yeah, my dad liked to eat, so he did the vegetable gardens, and my mom she always liked to find something different, you know, a plant that to grow in the yard that nobody had, and looking at them now, well, sure, they weren't.
Yeah, she even had you
Uncommon.
pinch cuttings for her
Thank you.
when he was a little kid.
Yeah, we went up to BC to the conservatory up there, and they had a tree tomato in fruit, and she plucked one off and gave it to me and said, "Stick that in your pocket. Nobody's going to search a little kid."
Wow.
That's how he started his path to seed collecting, I think.
It was really interesting, though, I mean, because it did grow, and there's something about it's like, God, I could get arrested, Makes that plant even more valuable to you.
That's right.
The start of your collecting career.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see any more questions. If anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask something verbally, we can give that a second. But otherwise, I want to thank you for a really interesting presentation. You guys have been so many places with so many interesting plants.
Yeah, we feel
Well,
really
thanks.
fortunate. It's our favorite thing to get out and see plants and habitat. So
Yeah, we certainly do want to spend some more time down in California
Oh,
too. I
man.
mean, you guys have such a rich flora. And my niece is in the process of moving to San Diego right now, so definitely need to go visit her. So,
Yep.
Let me bring you down here.
Yeah.
I have a thank you for all your conservation work from one of our members too.
Well,
So
thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, you're
yeah,
welcome.
we appreciate it.
And we are doing did you mention that in the beginning?
No.
We are doing another lecture, if you can stand it, tomorrow night on Argentina. So it's a more in-depth look at our trip to Argentina through the Conservancy. It's at 6:30.
Yeah.
So if anyone's
And
interested.
information can be found
Yeah,
on our
it's on our
conservancy site.
Our
So.
Regis Botanical Conservancy site. So
that sounds
Well,
interesting.
thank you so much.
yeah,
This
thanks for
was
having us.
Thank you.
a lot of fun.
A wonderful.
Someone just asked what your next collecting trip is.
Any place that'll take us.
Well, we've each had our first shot, so we're excited about that. And so we're hopeful that actually someday we'll be able to start traveling again. And it's hard to know. I mean, Asia definitely has its appeal.
Yeah, China always has got a lot of interest to us because it's so diverse and rich.
Yeah.
And but I personally, I'm not going back until they get a little further along until the pandemic goes a little bit further, because currently they're requiring this particular test for new arrivals. So they do an anal swab COVID test, and that ain't happening. That's just not happening.
Yeah, it doesn't seem too appealing somehow. So we may try for Vietnam, or Taiwan actually has some interest. So we'll see. And South America was fascinating. That's just a whole nother world.
Yeah, actually, just maybe even the next county would be pretty
Yeah.
exciting.
That sounds
These
good.
days, yes. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
And-
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
Thank you to all who attended tonight. So.
Okay.
Good night.
Yep. Good
Night.
night.